Throughout human history, there have been countless stories of children who speak of lives they've never lived, describe places they have never visited, and demonstrate knowledge that seems impossible for their age and background. These accounts, often dismissed as coincidence or imagination, have continued to surface in cultures all around the world, from rural India to modern-day America. Some children appear to recall intricate details about ancient civilizations, long-extinct languages, or historical events with unsettling accuracy. This phenomenon has puzzled researchers, psychologists, spiritual thinkers, and skeptics alike. One of the most striking elements in these cases is the clarity with which young children can recount scenes, rituals, names, and social customs from a past era. Many of these children begin speaking of other lives between the ages of 2 and 5, the period in early childhood when identity is still fluid and imagination is rich, but before significant external education or media exposure. A child might, for example, speak fluent phrases in an ancient language like Aramaic or Sumerian, despite having never been exposed to such content in any direct way. Others may recognize old maps, navigate unfamiliar cities with uncanny ease, or point out inconsistencies in historically accepted narratives. In some instances, children recall specific names, their past family members, locations, professions, and even their own death. These memories are often accompanied by strong emotions, dreams, or even physical reactions to certain stimuli. For instance, a child may burst into tears upon hearing a traditional melody they claim belonged to their previous life, or show an aversion to water due to a memory of drowning. What's more, these accounts are sometimes corroborated by historical documents or living relatives of deceased individuals the child claims to have been. The most famous research into this phenomenon was carried out by Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia, who documented over 2,500 cases of children who claimed to remember past lives. Stevenson's work was groundbreaking not because it confirmed reincarnation. He was cautious never to claim that, but because it presented detailed, documented accounts that defied conventional explanations. In case after case, Stevenson and his team found that children would often speak about a person who had died years before they were born, sometimes even with injuries or birthmarks that matched fatal wounds on the deceased. For example, one child in India described a small village he had never visited and spoke of being a man who was murdered there. When researchers brought the child to the village, he correctly identified the man's house, pointed out the location of his hidden belongings, and greeted members of the man's former family by name. The details matched historical records, and local villagers verified the boy's story. How could this child, who had never left his town, know so much? These stories raise profound questions. Are these mere coincidences, or the result of unconscious pattern recognition? Is it possible that some children retain access to a collective unconscious, as Carl Jung once proposed, a vast psychological reservoir of archetypes, images, and knowledge inherited from humanity's shared past? Or could these be authentic memories from other lifetimes, retained through a process of reincarnation? The concept of reincarnation is found in many of the world's religious and philosophical systems. In Hinduism and Buddhism, for instance, the soul is believed to pass through cycles of death and rebirth, each life shaped by karma accumulated in the past. In some forms of Kabbalistic Judaism and early Christian sects, similar ideas appear, although often in more symbolic or esoteric forms. In modern spiritual movements, reincarnation is often seen as a process of soul evolution, where each lifetime contributes to a larger journey of growth and awareness. Yet even if one accepts reincarnation as a theoretical possibility, the question remains, why do only some children remember their past lives, and why do such memories often vanish as the child grows older? One hypothesis is that young children's brains are more plastic and less fully integrated into their present identity, making them more open to non-local consciousness or residual memories. The process of maturing, learning language, and socially integrating into a specific culture might overwrite or repress these older memories, much in the way that dreams fade as we wake. Others suggest that trauma may act as a trigger, with emotional shocks in the present life unlocking access to unresolved past experiences. Some children also appear to have knowledge of ancient languages, tongues that have long since fallen out of use, such as Latin, ancient Egyptian, or Sanskrit. This phenomenon, known as xenoglossy, is particularly baffling. In several well-documented cases, individuals have spoken entire sentences or held conversations in a language they have never studied or heard in their current life. While skeptics argue that these utterances could be the result of chance combinations of sounds, linguistic experts in many of these cases have identified the grammar and vocabulary as authentic and contextually appropriate. An example often cited is the case of a young boy in Turkey who began chanting prayers in an ancient dialect of Arabic, despite coming from a secular family with no religious instruction. Another is a girl in Sri Lanka who reportedly sang old Buddhist hymns in Pali, a liturgical language no longer spoken in daily life, after claiming she had been a temple dancer in a previous life. These instances are difficult to dismiss as fantasy or fabrication, especially when verified by independent linguists and cultural historians. Could there be another explanation? Some theorists have suggested that these children are tapping into a kind of memory field, a quantum information space that records all events, thoughts, and identities across time. This idea is sometimes linked to the concept of the Akashic records, a mystical compendium of all knowledge said to exist in a non-physical realm. From a more scientific standpoint, some physicists and consciousness researchers have speculated that information may be a fundamental component of reality, and that consciousness might access non-local sources of data, much like tuning into a frequency under certain conditions. This idea, while controversial, opens the door to interpretations that bridge science and spirituality. If consciousness is not confined to the brain, but is instead a field phenomenon that interacts with the brain, then it might be possible, under specific circumstances, for individuals to receive information not stored within their own biological system. Children, with their open, unfiltered awareness, may be more naturally attuned to such frequencies. Still, mainstream science remains highly skeptical. The dominant view in neuroscience is that consciousness is a product of brain activity, and that memories, personality, and knowledge are encoded in neural circuits. From this perspective, the idea of past life recall is deeply problematic. It implies that memory can survive death and reincarnate in another body, which challenges basic assumptions about biology and identity. However, science itself is evolving. Research into near-death experiences, psi phenomena, and the nature of consciousness continues to push the boundaries of what we understand about the mind. While many claims remain unproven, they also remain unrefuted. Anecdotal data, particularly when consistent across cultures and separated by time and geography, should not be dismissed lightly. If even a small percentage of these past life memory cases are authentic, they demand a reevaluation of our understanding of self, memory, and reality itself. There are also psychological explanations worth exploring. Some researchers argue that children may internalize stories or information overheard from adults and unconsciously adopt them as their own. This can happen without malice or intent. Children are highly imaginative, and their developing brains are adept at filling in gaps with plausible narratives. Over time, these stories may feel real to the child, even if they originate in fantasy or suggestion. Hypnotic regression, too, can lead to the creation of vivid memories that feel authentic, but are actually fabrications of the subconscious mind. Yet not all cases can be so easily explained. When children reveal obscure historical details that match archival data, or when they possess knowledge that was only recently discovered by scholars, the puzzle becomes harder to dismiss. A child describing funeral rites from a lost civilization with anthropological precision is not something easily attributed to imagination or suggestion, especially when no exposure to such information can be found in their environment. The phenomenon also raises philosophical questions about the nature of identity. If we are not only the sum of our current experiences, then what is the self? Are we an evolving consciousness that temporarily inhabits different forms, learning and growing with each incarnation? Or are these cases rare anomalies, strange glitches in a biological system, like fragments of code leaking between unrelated programs? Some have likened the phenomenon to a leak in the matrix, a moment when the fabric of reality becomes thin and consciousness slips through time. Others believe these are instances of spiritual memory, designed to teach, warn, or awaken humanity to deeper truths. Regardless of the interpretation, these cases challenge us to remain open-minded. The mystery of children who remember other lives, who speak ancient tongues and identify with long-dead individuals, is not just a curiosity. It is a mirror held up to our assumptions about life, death, and what it means to be human. As we continue to explore these extraordinary cases, it becomes evident that they do not exist in isolation. Around the world, researchers have collected similar stories from a vast range of cultures, languages, religions, and socioeconomic backgrounds. This widespread nature of the phenomenon suggests that it may not be the product of specific belief systems or environmental conditioning alone. In fact, many of the most compelling cases come from families or communities that actively reject the idea of reincarnation, which only strengthens the credibility of the reports. In the United States, for instance, several children have been documented speaking about lives as soldiers, artists, or civilians who died during wars or disasters. One particularly famous case is that of James Leininger, a young boy who, from the age of 2, began having vivid nightmares about crashing in a plane. He described in detail the cockpit, the name of the aircraft carrier, and even the name Natoma Bay, which his parents initially thought was meaningless. As his memories unfolded, he identified himself as a pilot named James who had died in World War II. His parents, initially skeptical, began researching the names and facts he provided, all of which checked out. James Houston Jr. was a real person, a pilot who had died in combat near Iwo Jima. When the Leiningers reached out to surviving members of Houston's squadron, they confirmed the young boy's detailed memories, including facts that were not publicly known. Such stories lead to difficult questions. If reincarnation is real, how does it work? Is it a random process, or does it follow certain laws? Do souls choose their next lives, or are they assigned based on past karma? And what happens to the continuity of identity? Is the soul the same entity across different lifetimes, or is the person we are now merely a mask worn by a deeper, more enduring consciousness? These questions have long been addressed by spiritual traditions. In Tibetan Buddhism, for instance, the process of reincarnation is not only accepted but systematized. The tradition of recognizing tulkus, reincarnated lamas, involves identifying children who are believed to be the rebirth of previous spiritual teachers. The process includes rigorous testing, including the ability of the child to recognize possessions or people from their former life. One of the most famous examples is that of the Dalai Lama, who is believed to be the 14th incarnation of a spiritual lineage dating back centuries. The selection process involves oracles, dreams, and extensive rituals, but also practical tests involving recognition of objects that belong to the previous incarnation. Although such systems are deeply embedded in specific religious contexts, they show that the concept of reincarnation has been treated with seriousness, method, and institutional care in some parts of the world. It is not seen as superstition, but as a vital aspect of spiritual development. Still, most modern societies lack any framework for understanding or integrating such memories. When a Western child begins to speak about being a samurai, a Roman soldier, or an Egyptian priest, their experiences are often pathologized or dismissed as fantasy. Yet the children themselves often speak with an emotional intensity and clarity that suggests something more than storytelling. This emotional element is crucial. Many children who claim past life memories experience profound grief, longing, or unfinished business. Some express a deep desire to return to their previous families or to resolve old conflicts. These emotions are not vague or dreamlike. They are visceral, personal, and persistent. In some cases, they cause psychological distress. Children may be tormented by fears, recurring dreams, or guilt that seems disproportionate to their current lives. When therapists work with such children through guided visualization or trauma integration techniques, they often find that acknowledging the past experience, whether real or symbolic, leads to healing. From a therapeutic standpoint, it may not matter whether these memories are truly from another life or are symbolic constructions of the subconscious. What matters is their emotional reality and psychological impact. Some psychologists, particularly those trained in transpersonal or Jungian approaches, argue that these past life narratives can serve as metaphors for unresolved inner conflicts or developmental tasks. In this view, a child who remembers being a betrayed soldier might be processing feelings of abandonment or fear in their current life. The symbolic power of the narrative gives the child a way to process these feelings in a safe, contained manner. Yet this explanation does not cover all the data. Many cases include verifiable details that go far beyond what metaphor or imagination can produce. Take, for instance, the case of a young girl in Lebanon who remembered being a man from another village who had died in an accident. She insisted on visiting the village, where she correctly identified the man's house, his widow, and his children. She even recalled a hidden stash of money buried under a tree, which was later found in the exact location she described. Her current family had no ties to the village, and no explanation could account for how she acquired such specific knowledge. In addition to verbal memories, some children display birthmarks, phobias, or physical traits linked to their alleged former lives. Stevenson and his colleagues documented numerous cases in which birthmarks or deformities corresponded to fatal injuries received by the person the child claimed to have been. For example, a boy who said he had been shot in the chest had a large, irregular birthmark in the same location. Autopsy reports of the deceased often matched the location and shape of the wound to the child's mark. While correlation is not causation, the pattern across dozens of cases is difficult to ignore. Xenoglossy, too, deserves closer scrutiny. If a child can spontaneously speak or understand a language they have never been exposed to, what are the possible explanations? Skeptics propose cryptomnesia, a phenomenon where forgotten memories resurface unconsciously. For example, a child might have overheard phrases in a foreign language from a neighbor, TV program, or passing conversation, and then unconsciously reproduce them later. But again, in many cases, the child not only reproduces vocabulary, but uses it correctly and in full grammatical structures, often with historical dialects that are no longer spoken. It is not easy to attribute such linguistic accuracy to random memory fragments. From a neurological perspective, the phenomenon raises questions about how memory is stored, accessed, and constructed. Is it possible that the brain acts more like a receiver of consciousness than a producer of it? This idea, while still fringe in academic neuroscience, has been proposed by thinkers such as Aldous Huxley, who suggested that the brain is a reducing valve, filtering vast fields of consciousness into the narrow band of awareness required for survival. If that's the case, then children might, in rare circumstances, access information beyond their personal experience, especially before the reducing valve fully matures. Quantum theories of consciousness also suggest the possibility that memory and identity are not bound by classical time and space. While speculative, some researchers believe that consciousness may operate at the quantum level, a domain where information is not lost, and where past, present, and future can overlap. According to this view, a child's brain might momentarily align with the information signature of a previous person, like tuning into an echo still reverberating through the quantum field. While these ideas are far from proven, they represent serious attempts to grapple with anomalies that conventional science cannot yet explain. Critics rightly caution against leaping to mystical conclusions without sufficient evidence. Many cases have been debunked as hoaxes, misunderstandings, or misinterpretations. The role of suggestion, cultural bias, and even fraud cannot be ignored. Parents may, consciously or unconsciously, shape a child's narrative, especially if they believe in reincarnation or have something to gain from media attention. Memory itself is notoriously fallible, and children are especially prone to confabulation, the unintentional creation of false memories. Nonetheless, the strongest cases, those that include verifiable facts, consistent behavior, physical evidence, and independent corroboration, deserve serious attention. They invite us to keep asking questions rather than rushing to conclusions. Perhaps the answer lies not in choosing between reincarnation and materialism, but in recognizing that reality may be more complex than either framework allows. Culture, too, plays a crucial role in how these experiences are interpreted. In cultures where reincarnation is widely accepted, such as in parts of India, Tibet, or Burma, children's memories of past lives are often nurtured and respected. Families may investigate the claims, and community elders may help validate the stories. In the West, however, such memories are often dismissed or pathologized, leading to confusion, suppression, or shame. A child who claims to have lived before may be told to stop making things up, even if their experiences are deeply felt and persistent. This difference in cultural response shapes the outcome of the child's psychological development. Those whose experiences are affirmed may integrate their memories as part of a spiritual worldview. Those who are dismissed may learn to suppress their intuitive or imaginative faculties, potentially leading to inner conflict or a sense of alienation. In this way, our beliefs about the nature of consciousness not only influence how we interpret these phenomena, they also shape the lives of the children who experience them. As we look to the future, perhaps what is most needed is a multidisciplinary approach. No single field, whether psychology, neuroscience, linguistics, or spirituality, holds all the answers. The mystery of past life memories in children sits at the intersection of many domains, and understanding it may require the development of new models of mind, memory, and identity. We must remain skeptical, but also curious, open-minded, yet rigorous. In the end, the question is not only whether reincarnation is real. It is also about what kind of beings we are. Are we merely biological machines, briefly animated by chemical impulses? Or are we travelers across time, bearing traces of lives once lived, with each new incarnation offering a chance to learn, to heal, and to remember? The phenomenon of children remembering past lives continues to spark deep philosophical reflection. If we entertain the possibility that reincarnation occurs, even in rare or exceptional cases, then the very nature of personal identity comes into question. What is the self that persists from one life to another? Is it an unchanging core, a soul or essence, or is it a stream of consciousness that shifts, accumulates experience, and adapts over time? Many spiritual traditions suggest that the self is not a static entity, but a dynamic process. In Buddhism, for example, there is no permanent soul, Atman, but rather a continuity of karmic tendencies, desires, and attachments that drive the wheel of rebirth, samsara. In Hindu thought, by contrast, the Atman is considered an eternal, unchanging self that takes on new bodies through the cycles of birth and death. In Western esoteric traditions and modern spiritual philosophies, the soul is often seen as a growing and learning consciousness that incarnates in different lives to evolve. These frameworks provide different answers to the questions posed by children's memories of other lives. A child who recalls being a medieval monk or a soldier from ancient Rome may be tapping into this stream of continuity, the residue of prior experience that has not yet faded. Their memories, emotions, and sometimes even talents may reflect unfinished karmic patterns or unresolved energies from those lives. Interestingly, some children not only remember traumatic experiences from the past, but also seem to display talents or aptitudes that exceed what might be expected for their age. There are reports of children who can play complex musical pieces on instruments they have never studied, or who intuitively understand crafts, techniques, or languages far beyond their environment. While this can sometimes be explained by innate aptitude or early exposure, in some cases it appears to represent a deeper wellspring of retained knowledge. The relationship between memory, talent, and reincarnation remains largely unexplored by mainstream science. However, some researchers have speculated that certain skills or predispositions could be imprinted on consciousness and carried forward across lives. If so, this might explain why prodigies occasionally appear in fields like music, mathematics, or art, seemingly with little formal training. This concept also resonates with the idea of epigenetic inheritance, the passing down of traits not strictly through DNA, but through the transmission of patterns of gene expression influenced by ancestral experiences. While epigenetics deals with biological inheritance, the parallel invites speculation. Could there be a similar mechanism for the transmission of psychological or spiritual patterns? Moreover, some children who remember past lives also display notable changes in personality once their memories are triggered. A child who had been shy and reserved may suddenly display confidence, leadership, or emotional maturity when recalling their past identity. Conversely, some children become withdrawn or anxious after reliving traumatic memories from another life. This suggests that these experiences are not just mental constructs, but deeply felt and embodied experiences that shape the child's current personality. Psychologists working with such children often note that addressing these memories therapeutically can be beneficial. Allowing the child to express, explore, and integrate these experiences, without dismissing them as fantasy, helps in resolving emotional conflicts and promoting psychological well-being. In this sense, the past life memory becomes a therapeutic metaphor, whether or not it corresponds to literal historical events. Interestingly, similar phenomena appear in adults undergoing past life regression therapy, a technique that uses hypnosis to access deep layers of memory and imagination. Clients often report vivid scenes from other times and places, complete with emotional resonance and sensory detail. Critics argue that such experiences are constructed by suggestion, cultural imagery, and the subconscious mind. However, proponents note that these experiences often lead to healing insights and emotional release, suggesting that their therapeutic value may not depend on their literal truth. What distinguishes children's spontaneous past life memories from hypnotically induced ones is that they arise naturally, without external prompting or suggestion. The memories typically emerge before the age of 7, are accompanied by strong emotions, and often fade as the child grows older, following a developmental trajectory that suggests a genuine, though fleeting, phenomenon. From a scientific perspective, one of the most promising avenues for understanding these cases may lie in the emerging field of consciousness studies. Traditional neuroscience views consciousness as a product of brain activity, arising from neural networks and biochemical processes. But growing evidence from near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and psi phenomena suggests that consciousness may not be confined to the brain. It may be a more fundamental aspect of the universe, as some physicists and philosophers propose, more akin to a field that interacts with matter, rather than an epiphenomenon of the brain. If this is true, then it becomes conceivable that consciousness could survive bodily death and, under certain conditions, attach itself to a new body. The memory of past lives would then not be stored in the neurons of the brain, but in the structure of consciousness itself, a kind of non-local memory accessible under certain conditions, particularly in early childhood. Such ideas challenge the prevailing materialist paradigm, but align with many ancient wisdom traditions. They also resonate with modern theories in quantum physics, which suggest that information is never truly lost, and that the universe may operate as a vast informational field. Could children's past life memories represent moments when individual consciousness aligns with the informational imprint of a previous life? An additional mystery concerns why these memories seem to fade as children grow older. Most children who recall past lives do so between the ages of 2 and 7, after which the memories gradually disappear. One possible explanation is that as the brain matures and the child's sense of current identity solidifies, the channels of access to past life memories are closed off by the normal processes of cognitive and social development. In this view, early childhood represents a liminal state in which consciousness is still fluid and open, not yet fully anchored to the present personality. During this period, memories from other lives or from the collective unconscious may arise spontaneously. As language, cultural identity, and ego boundaries strengthen, these memories recede into the background or are forgotten. Another question is why only some children have these experiences. If reincarnation is a universal process, why do most people not remember their past lives? Some traditions suggest that forgetting is a protective mechanism, allowing the soul to focus on the lessons of the current life without being burdened by past traumas or attachments. Only in certain cases, perhaps when past issues remain unresolved or when there is a strong karmic link, do memories break through into conscious awareness. From this perspective, spontaneous past life memories may serve a purpose, helping the soul resolve unfinished business or integrate important experiences. They may also provide opportunities for growth and healing in the current life. For the child, these memories can be both a gift and a burden, depending on how they are understood and supported by those around them. As interest in these phenomena grows, a small but dedicated group of researchers continues to investigate. The work of pioneers like Ian Stevenson and his successor, Jim Tucker, at the University of Virginia, has laid a solid foundation for future study. Their careful documentation of thousands of cases, across cultures and continents, provides a valuable database for further analysis. Modern technology may also offer new tools for research. Advances in neuroimaging, for example, could help identify patterns of brain activity associated with past life memory recall. Cross-cultural studies using rigorous methodologies can help distinguish universal patterns from culturally influenced narratives. Collaboration between neuroscientists, psychologists, linguists, and scholars of religion may yield new insights into this complex and mysterious phenomenon. It is clear that the current scientific paradigm does not yet have a complete explanation for children's past life memories and xenoglossy. However, the growing body of evidence suggests that these experiences are genuine and worthy of serious investigation. They challenge us to expand our understanding of consciousness, memory, and the nature of human identity. Beyond the scientific questions, these cases also invite us to reflect on the deeper meaning of life and death. If consciousness survives physical death, if we are, in some sense, eternal beings engaged in a journey of learning across many lifetimes, then our perspective on existence is profoundly altered. Life becomes not a fleeting accident, but a meaningful process of growth, healing, and discovery. Such a worldview encourages compassion, tolerance, and a sense of shared destiny among all beings. It invites us to see the trials and challenges of life as opportunities for the soul's evolution. It also offers hope that death is not the end, but a transition to new experiences and new lessons. Of course, these are not conclusions to be accepted uncritically. They are hypotheses to be explored, tested, and refined. The path to understanding is one of open inquiry, guided by both reason and curiosity. In this spirit, the study of children's past life memories represents not an oddity to be dismissed, but a doorway into some of the deepest mysteries of human existence. As we probe further into these extraordinary accounts of children recalling past lives and demonstrating inexplicable knowledge, another important theme emerges: the role of intention and consciousness in shaping reality. If the universe operates as a vast informational field, with consciousness as a participatory force, then what we observe, including experiences of memory, identity, and self, may depend partly on our own openness to perceive certain layers of reality. This is not to suggest that past life memories are purely subjective or invented. On the contrary, many documented cases provide objective, verifiable data that defies easy dismissal. Yet the degree to which these memories surface, and how they are interpreted, seems influenced by cultural context, parental attitudes, and the child's own spiritual sensitivity. Consider, for instance, that in cultures where reincarnation is part of the dominant worldview, children's accounts of past lives are more openly acknowledged and explored. The memories in these settings tend to be more vivid, detailed, and emotionally integrated. In cultures that deny or ridicule such experiences, the memories may still arise, but they are more likely to be suppressed, distorted, or pathologized. This suggests that human consciousness is not a passive receiver of facts about the universe, but an active participant in shaping what is remembered, understood, and expressed. This principle resonates with ideas found in quantum physics, particularly the observer effect. The act of observation influences the outcome of an event. If consciousness can in some way influence which aspects of reality come into focus, then the phenomena of past life recall might not simply be a matter of stored information, but a dynamic interaction between consciousness and the larger field of existence. Adding another layer of complexity is the phenomenon of group reincarnation, or karmic families. The idea that certain souls reincarnate together across lifetimes in different roles and relationships. Some children who recall past lives also recognize current family members as figures from their previous existence, though in different roles. A mother in one life may be a sister in the next. A former enemy may return as a friend or mentor. While this concept may seem speculative, numerous accounts suggest that relationships in this life often carry echoes of unresolved dynamics from other incarnations. In therapeutic settings, exploring these connections has led some individuals to greater compassion and understanding toward difficult relationships. Whether or not these patterns stem from literal past lives or deep unconscious archetypes, their psychological effect can be healing. The concept of group reincarnation also raises questions about the deeper purpose of these cycles. If souls return together, perhaps it is to work through unresolved karmic lessons, to evolve in understanding and love, or to assist one another in spiritual growth. This view emphasizes the continuity of relationships across time and suggests that life's encounters are rarely random. Even the most painful experiences may hold meaning when viewed in the larger context of the soul's journey. Such a perspective shifts our understanding of justice, fate, and free will. If reincarnation is real, the traditional notions of punishment and reward in a single lifetime lose their absolutism. Instead, actions and choices ripple through time, affecting not only this life but many to come. Karma is not cosmic retribution, but a natural law of cause and effect operating on the level of consciousness. Skeptics, of course, challenge these interpretations. They argue that such ideas appeal to human desires for meaning, continuity, and cosmic justice, providing comfort in the face of life's uncertainties. From a materialist viewpoint, consciousness ceases at death, and these narratives are simply cultural constructs or psychological defenses against mortality. And yet, this perspective does not fully account for the empirical data gathered over decades. When children recall names, locations, languages, and historical details with no possible source in their current life, and when these details are verified through independent research, we must confront the limits of the reductionist model. Either we are witnessing an astonishing coincidence multiplied thousands of times, or we must expand our understanding of mind and reality. Some scholars suggest that these phenomena point toward a more integrative paradigm, one that honors both empirical science and the insights of spiritual traditions. This emerging view sees consciousness not as an accidental byproduct of matter, but as a fundamental aspect of the universe. Matter and energy may arise within consciousness, not the other way around. If so, reincarnation becomes not only plausible, but perhaps inevitable, an expression of consciousness's ongoing evolution and creativity. Interestingly, this view finds resonance in the work of certain physicists, philosophers, and consciousness researchers. The notion of a conscious universe, sometimes called panpsychism, is gaining renewed attention. It suggests that all of nature is imbued with some form of awareness, and that human consciousness is one expression of a much larger continuum. In this light, individual lives can be seen as waves on the ocean of consciousness, distinct yet inseparable from the whole. Birth and death are transitions, not endpoints. Memory may not be confined to neurons, but woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. Children's spontaneous recall of past lives may represent moments when the veil thins and the larger reality shines through. The ethical implications of such a worldview are profound. If we are, in essence, immortal consciousness journeying through many lives, then how we treat others and ourselves gains a new dimension of importance. Compassion, forgiveness, and responsibility take on deeper meaning. Actions are not isolated in time, but part of a vast, interconnected web of experience. This perspective may also help to explain why some children's memories fade while others persist. Perhaps certain experiences, especially those with strong emotional charge or unfinished karma, are more likely to imprint on consciousness and surface in future incarnations. Trauma, intense love, betrayal, or acts of great moral significance may leave stronger traces, influencing future lives. Furthermore, some children report that they chose their current life before birth, often recalling a sense of purpose or mission. These reports suggest that reincarnation is not merely a mechanical process, but one guided by intention and higher wisdom. Souls may choose circumstances, families, cultures, challenges that best support their learning and growth. This aligns with the teachings of many spiritual traditions, which emphasize life as a school for the soul. Such ideas, though inspiring, also raise complex questions about suffering and injustice. If souls choose their lives, how do we account for extreme suffering, for the innocent victims of war, poverty, or disease? One possibility is that choice operates on a level beyond our current understanding, that what seems tragic from a human perspective may serve a larger purpose in the soul's evolution. Alternatively, some experiences may result from the complex interplay of karma, collective consciousness, and free will, not predetermined by any single factor. Whatever the case, the recurring theme in children's accounts is that consciousness survives death, and that life's experiences, both joyful and painful, contribute to the soul's growth. This view fosters resilience and meaning in the face of life's challenges, offering hope that nothing is wasted in the larger journey. In conclusion, the phenomenon of children recalling past lives and speaking forgotten languages invites us to re-examine our assumptions about consciousness, identity, and reality. While much remains mysterious, the weight of evidence suggests that these are not mere fantasies or cultural artifacts. They point toward a deeper understanding of the human experience, one that transcends the boundaries of birth and death. As research continues, we may discover new frameworks that integrate these findings with the insights of science and spirituality. Such integration requires humility, curiosity, and openness, qualities that children themselves often embody. Perhaps it is no accident that it is through the voices of children that these ancient mysteries are once again being heard. They remind us that reality is more wondrous and complex than we often imagine. In their stories, we glimpse a larger story, one of consciousness unfolding across time, ever learning, ever becoming. And in this unfolding, we too are invited to remember, not only who we are now, but who we have been, and who we might yet become.